I want you to rip some people off. That's how a lot of my videos can come across to you guys. I have challenged your morality as a person teaching Airbnb for the last 6 years, and I will confess that. I'm a business person that was born out of survival. My parents used to abuse me. I did whatever it took for me to survive back then. I went homeless and started my first business after homelessness, stealing from a grocery store to eat. So yes, if there's anybody who's gonna push the moral fiber to make a buck, it probably would be someone like me. But I wanna clarify some statements to you. As much as this industry is this beautiful low barrier to entry where you can express yourself and make good money being yourself, there are business best practices that exist that border on ethics. And I want you to understand that some of what I want you to do may sound like ripping people off, but it's actually going to be in your best interest. And in the long run, it could be in the best interest of the greater good of your company if you just do a couple things differently. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the seedier part about running businesses, especially an Airbnb one, where you might be ripping someone off. I guess you can decide by the end of this video. Welcome back, YouTube world. Yes, you're not going to like everything I say in this video, most likely. The most beautiful part about this video is probably the view, not the words coming out of my mouth. I just got back from Costa Rica, a couple weeks of soul searching, and I really felt like this video is heavy on my heart because I'm about to do a webinar on hiring housekeepers. And this is one of those topics where people are like, oh, you're a bad person. And you know what? Maybe I am. I might be a bad person, and I want to talk to you about that. There's a couple things that I've taught on this YouTube channel because you should do it as a business, but it may not be good for your soul. And I want you to make the final decision on some of my more controversial teachings. The very first one, let's talk about housekeeping. I'm doing a webinar on how to hire housekeepers for $15 an hour, maybe even less than that. This is controversial because a lot of people are talking about the concept of paying a living wage. Businesses by nature endeavor to lower their internal costs to create competitive advantage, to create efficiency. And in this case, if your housekeepers are paid $15 an hour, where your competitors' housekeepers are paid $45 an hour, you are saving $30 an hour in cost. You're going to win at the end of the day if the industry ever suffers a down market, much like coronavirus or the Airbnb bust. A lot of people did go out of business because they didn't reduce their costs enough, and this is one of those areas. Now, this is the part that gets sticky. Should somebody work for $15 an hour or less? Well, I'm gonna give you my argument. When I was 14, I picked up my first job at a pancake house for like $4.85 an hour. When I was 15, I was working pushing grocery carts for $5.15 an hour. And at that point, I was looking for a different job, and there's one available for $9 an hour. I did not apply for that job because I didn't think I was good enough to get that big of a pay raise yet at the age of like 16, 17. And so I took a different job for like $6.50 an hour. See, at that point, at 16, working for $6.50 an hour, my best friend's dad was an accountant making $68,000 per year. And I went to his house, and they had this newly built like home on a cul-de-sac in Delavan, Wisconsin. That home now is probably worth about $280,000. That's how much that new built house is probably worth today. I remember going, wow, this is so cool. These guys are rich. These guys are super rich. I hope that when I die one day, I'll have made $50,000 in a year. Well, I made $50,000 in a day about a month ago. And so you can see how things are much different than what we imagine them when we're younger or poorer, even to that. When I was 18 after school, I graduated with a 2.12 GPA in high school. I didn't go to college right away. I instead worked third shift at a rubber factory. And we made parts for like Harley Davidson and parts for toilets. And I got this union job working third shift for $14.24 an hour. If I worked enough overtime, I could get like $28.88 or something like that per hour on Sunday for 4 hours. It's the most I could ever make. I made over $50,000 that year because I worked so much overtime. Let me try to round the point out for you now. There are people on this planet who work for $9 an hour. Happily work for $9 an hour because that's what they think they deserve. If you put a job ad out for a position at $15 an hour where you said you would provide full training for a new position at $15 an hour, somebody might take a stab at that. And they might find that they like the work. A lot of you don't understand HR or have not run a business long enough to really get to what I'm trying to say. That's why this day-long boot camp on hiring and training housekeepers is so important. And that's why I'm doing another month of coaching on the back end for people to kind of initiate what I'm trying to teach. Because there is so much to this. What I'm asking a lot of you to do is to start what I would call a cost reduction process towards the target goal of $15 an hour for your housekeepers. See, many of you are paying $35 an hour or $50 an hour for your housekeepers. What if you're paying $28 an hour? That would still be an improvement on your cost basis as a company and make you more competitive. The pipe dream goal of less than $15 an hour, some of you may not even believe that's possible. Some of you won't. But I've been hiring our housekeepers by the hour for 5 years. The most we've ever paid a person was $18 an hour after they worked for us for a couple of years. we're still hiring at $14 to $17 an hour is our target range right now in 7 different cities. And one of the star points for this argument is I'm not hiring housekeepers, I'm creating them. I'm hiring the kid at Chuck E. Cheese. I'm hiring the guy out of Jack in the Box Burgers. I'm hiring a person who's pushing grocery carts for $8 an hour. I'm giving them a better job and I'm giving them coaching. In order for you to do that, you have to run a good enough business to be able to be the leader to hire and train those people, right? That's going to be a part of this for you. If you can do that, if you have the systems to create a housekeeper, you could take somebody who was getting paid 9, pay them 14, they're in love with their new job, and you can create a position that if you had to hire that person with experience built in, they would charge you 35. This is the heart of value creation. Now, some of you might still say, hey, even though you could take a $9 an hour person, train them and have them for 14, you should pay them 25 because that's what the position pays. Well, I'm going to argue with you. Sorry. If you can give somebody a raise that they will accept, a job that they will accept at a price that they accept, you get to capture that value. That's the way the world works. Now, you might still not like what I have to say. If you're mad at me already, please leave it in the comments. Let's go to topic number 2. Number 2, we've talked about a lot, which is charging guests for stuff, even the little stuff. See, when you audit your company, the ones and zeros, the profit and the loss, there's going to be this cascading trail of breadcrumbs of loss behind you. All companies have a form of inefficiency or loss, and it's our job to try to prevent those things. And one of those things is damages, theft, decommissioned linens, guest resolution basics, basically all guest resolution stuff. Now, when Airbnb first started, the host quality was amazing. These hosts would do everything. They would cook breakfast, they'd pick you up from the airport, they would do the coolest things for you, right, as a guest. The world has changed. 2014 was a long time ago. Now, the likelihood that your host is actually a company that is represented by another company called a co-host is really high. And these people don't care about you as a guest, really not much at all. That's common nowadays. At this point, these guests are expecting a different behavior from their hosts. They also behave differently than they used to. See, a guest back in 2014, if they broke something, they would go and buy you a new something that they broke, right? They would wash the dishes. They would take out the trash. They would clean your place probably better than you could if they were qualified to do so. They would do the nicest things in return. That world is long gone. A lot of hosts are holding onto these old ideals, which is just let it slide. If you were a good host, you would let it slide. If a guest wrecks a couple towels or they break a couple wine glasses, you should let it slide. Now, there are listings that have a high enough per night price that you could just let it slide. If your nightly rate's $500 to $800 a night, I know that's a big range, but if you're up there, a couple wine glasses isn't going to be worth risking the negative review. But I did just release a video about how if a guest caused any damages at all, like broken wine glasses, and they left a negative review, you could get that removed. So really now the only consideration isn't the retaliation in the review, but whether or not that guest could come back and stay with you. The cost of charging them for wine glasses could be the cost of a return customer now. That is really where you have to do your risk analysis. Now, there are insurance programs for this. Proper does one. You don't even have to ask the guest to replace these wine glasses. This insurance program will pay these little fees and you can just let the guest kind of slide on them. You can have that. In a world where we hold people accountable for the damages that they do, they might pay for your wine glasses and still like to stay enough that they would return because they understood that they broke the glasses. I would even go so far to argue that with a property like that, if a guest is going to fight you on those damages and not take accountability, do you want that risk profile of guests to come back? Right? You could find better guests. If your listing is that good, you could just find better ones. Now, for lower cost listings where your nightly rate is $90 to $170 per night, you don't have the margin to eat those costs. Let's just use Arbitrage for an example. Your rents are $2,000 a month, and all of your other holding costs, housekeeping included, is $1,000 a month. So you're at $3,000 per month. You need to collect $100 a day for 30 days to break even. So if your nightly rate, say $130, right, and you had 100% occupancy, you'd make about $1,000. If your nightly rate was $140 at 100% occupancy, you'd make about $1,200. Let's say in the example that you only made $900 or $1,000 per month at the end of the month, and guests were very frequently doing $30 to $70 in damages on towels, or they were doing $15 to $30 in damages in glasses, or other things like that on a regular basis, you could eat $300 to $500 in loss, $300 to $500 over 8 reservations spread across them, that you chose to eat that loss. That's a big amount of money that you could lose. I would argue that when you have a smaller listing that doesn't have the room to just sweat it, that you should be going after these guests for damages. And you should be using the tools provided to you, which is Airbnb's review policy and their resolution program and Airbnb's air cover, in order to get paid for these things. Now, I do have a video on how I charge every guest. Even before the winter release, we were just scoring at a high rate. So watch those 2 videos, how I bill every guest, and then this new one about the winter releases review change. You're gonna be able to bill everybody for every damage that they do. Now, some of you might go, again, this is unethical, this is totally rude, you shouldn't be charging people for stuff, you're being a jerk host. But then again, I'm going to argue as a business owner who looks at that bottom dollar, I wanna stay in business. And I would love for you to go out of business because you paid your housekeepers $50 an hour and then you let $100 in sheets go every reservation, because you're gonna lose the money and then I'm not, and then I'm gonna stay in business. And then those customers that you like that would come back, you're not gonna be open for business, so then I'm going to get that customer even though I was the jerk host, because I'm the one with my doors open. You know what's really kind of funny? I think the third one is just my whole life has been a slap in the face to the host community in a way. I do arbitrage. I don't own my properties. I do some co-hosting, and a lot of people are angry in the comments going, a landlord would never allow this. Some people also think it's illegal and that you should not do Airbnb if you don't own the property. I really just don't have much to say in response to that, aside from, here's the truth here. We are in a country where people are trying to build a better life. They're doing it for good reasons, right? They want to make more money, right? The rich people shouldn't be the only people getting rich. And if you have enough money to own a property, you're good, right? But if you don't have enough money to own a property, I think Airbnb is like a perfect opportunity. Rent somebody else's property and make some money on it and try to get your own bread up. You know, let's push for some financial equality here. Yeah, even though I am not the star student for this, I built a way too big of a company for me to make that fair argument, but I did build my first business as a homeless person, right? And I found my way up from having nothing, from being welfare poor as a kid. And I want that for the thousands of people who watch this YouTube channel. I want the 16-year-old kid that doesn't have any money to go rent an apartment and then build his first business and do a good job. I want the single mother of 3 to start running her own Airbnb business and build a cool little housekeeping team for $15 an hour, and then send those housekeepers to clean other host houses, and then her have not only a few Airbnbs, but a housekeeping company. I want the guy that works 90 hours a week at some stupid tech job that never gets to see his kids. I want him to be able to automate a small portfolio of 8 to 20 properties and have time for his kid's soccer game. That is why arbitrage is such a powerful opportunity, because it gives the regular people an opportunity to make real money, not the fat, lazy, rich business owner, real estate people who already have enough money. They should go rot anyway. At this point, I don't deserve any more opportunity. I don't need any more opportunity. I don't deserve it. Again, you might think it's unethical to rent someone else's property to do Airbnb because you have so much entitlement that you don't want the next guy to have an opportunity. Go take a look in the mirror. This channel is for anybody who wants something out of their life that they've never had before. This opportunity is a low barrier to entry opportunity for a reason. Let people have it. I wish you all the best. I want you guys to continue to succeed whether or not you own your property. And if you hate me for what I say, that's okay. I'm a business owner and I'm a business coach. I'm not a life coach. I'm not an ethics coach. And if push comes to shove, I will teach my students to gouge your eyes out, like figuratively speaking, so that way their businesses stay in play and yours goes out of business. Because I protect my flock. In this case, you're on my channel, you're watching my videos, you're part of that movement. So I generally think that you're safe. So I'm speaking to some hypothetical other lazy investor when I say that. I love you guys, and I will be here for a long time, teaching business any way that I can. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the other side.